All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox as we kick off this midway point of the NFL season. Live look there at Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra, getting a little chillier there in Green Bay, Wisconsin, as we gear up for a exciting Week 9 slate of games. I'm the host, Andy Mack. We appreciate you joining us. It's officially at the mid-season, regular season point of this NFL year, but there's a lot of football left. The election just a few short days away, but a lot of football to be played today and all the way up until that key Super Bowl in New Orleans, Louisiana. All right, let's get out to plenty of games. And of course, we're following the latest here on this America's Game of the Week in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The scientists, the Packers traveling or hosting the Detroit Lions, the NFC North, a very tough showing its teeth this year. Also, live look right now in Atlanta, Georgia, the Dallas Cowboys on the road today, trying to settle some things within that franchise as they figure things out, going up against a very talented NFC South leading team in the Falcons. And also later tonight on Sunday Night Football, the Minnesota Vikings host the Indianapolis Colts. Some uncertainty at quarterback for the Colts. Anthony Richardson benched. In his place will be Joe Flacco. All right, we're following all the latest headlines for top storylines, top games, top matchups here on Football Sunday now. But we want to hear from you, from the audience here, about what you think, who you think is going to win America's Game of the Week at Lambeau Field. Of course, open those cameras on those phones, scan the QR code at the top right portion of the screen, and vote. Who do you think will win today's match of the Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers? The winner of this one will slide into first place in the NFC North. A lot of football left, but this is a key divisional game at the midway point. The Detroit Lions, arguably a NFC favorite. Green Bay does have their quarterback, Jordan Love, in place, coming off a groin injury that sidelined him for parts of the week last week. So we'll see what happens today at the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. All right, let's get out right now to other top games. As we just saw last week, an exciting game. Jaden Daniels, the Hail Mary heard round the world. We're going to be hearing from Chris Myers on the call for Jaden Daniels' game today against the New York Giants. Let's listen into this conversation. To Football Sunday now. I'm Andy Mack, and all hail Jaden Daniels after that miraculous touchdown throw lifted the Commanders past the Bears, the favorite for the Rookie of the Year, and dare I say, right into that MVP conversation, leading that pivotal division. They go up against a division foe this week, the 6-2 Commanders. Hard to fathom that record with the exact opposite 2-6 New York Giants. As the Commanders traveling there. Let's joined right now on the call for this game, Chris Myers, NFL on Fox. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. And we see Jaden Daniels, the heroics at home in Washington to lift them past the Bears. What do we make of this rookie campaign, and how much of a signature moment was this for his rookie year?
Yeah, I mean, that Hail Mary against the Bears, obviously he had to run around to make it happen, get the ball there, which showed you his arm strength, his awareness. I mean, that's the play of the year so far. And we're at the halfway point or nearing that. And, he has shown a lot of talent that Lamar Jackson has, that Josh Allen has. Joe Burrow, even a little Mahomes, and for a rookie, this is, unbelievable. In Washington, remember, they were a 4-13 team last year. A first-year head coach. Dan Quinn has been a head coach before. They have a number of rookies that have been playing, including Jaden Daniels, but his maturity and how well he's played, very well coached around him, again, improving each game. This will be the third game of his that I've called through the first portion of the season, and he really is. Remember, he had bad ribs and didn't really practice sore ribs through much of that previous week, so it shows you he can tough it out. He really, he has that intangible about him. Guys follow him. When you talk to him personally, he's very focused. He puts in the homework. He's in there early. So yes, it's not beyond belief. Jared Goff, Josh Allen, there's some MVP candidates. His name certainly has to be there along with Rookie of the Year, but he is for real, and he can't miss television because I had a couple of games where you thought he was sacked and he squirmed out of it, and whether he ran for a first down or threw or completed a pass or just avoided a negative loss, he's the real deal. As impressed as I was last year early with C.J. Stroud, and he held up just fine, got his team into the playoffs and won a game. Jaden Daniels is that much more impressive, at least at this point, as a pro.
Yeah, the hardware might be coming his way after that Heisman Trophy last year. This year, Rookie of the Year. We'll see what other accomplishments he can add to that mantle right now. But as you mentioned, you've called other Washington Commanders game this year, and New York, one of them in the rematch of this game. And the Giants might have nightmares of Austin Seibert, the kicker that nailed 7 field goals. What do we remember about that game, and how similar, dissimilar can we be on Sunday?
Well, the Giants are reeling right now. I mean, they've been just about in every game, and then the wheels come off. They can't score. They're 0-4 at home. They barely produce points, touchdowns when they play at home. Daniel Jones is getting just beat up and pounded on a regular basis. He's a solid runner. I mean, they try to use him because they've had some other issues with their offense. Malik Neighbors is a true talent. But they just don't have the running game. I mean, it's really disappointing. And their top runner, the rookie who has emerged with Devin Singletary, when he was out, and maybe Singletary will find out exactly when he starts, but is in concussion protocol. So this is, I mean, the Giants' season is slipping away. And that's the unfortunate part. That game earlier in the season, the Giants played well enough to win. And as you pointed out, they held Jaden Daniels and this Washington offense to all field goals, and we're in position to win that game. And after that, I mean, they just haven't been the same. And that's the other point, that Washington has improved and gotten better in that time. And it looks like the Giants, especially with some injuries too, on top of the limited talent they have, offensive line really exposed. Their defense is outstanding. Dexter Lawrence leads the NFL in sacks. The Giants lead the NFL in sacks. They've had some adjustments in the secondary, but usually that means you're going to be close to having a winning record. Not so much with the Giants.
I did want to ask you about the guy that is aptly named Big Sexy, Dexter Lawrence, leading the league in sacks. The team leads the league in sacks as well, and he certainly is the guy in that middle of the line, because we've talked about Aaron Donald, and now we're AD after Donald right now. He leads the league as a defensive tackle. How special of a player is he, and how much has he really cemented himself in the middle of that defense?
Yeah, he's actually bigger physically than Aaron Donald, and we know that Donald was, so he's in his own class, and I think he has to be mentioned as a candidate, even though he's on a losing team at the moment, or a team with a losing record, as a defensive player of the year for the reasons that we just talked about. You talk to him, he's a very nice guy. He actually had a little blow up on the sideline in the last game when the Giants struggled with the Steelers. And it wasn't like, hey, I'm giving up. It was like, hey, we got to do better as a team. He cares that much about winning. So, yeah, I would say, for a big man to move as quick as he is. I mean, Donald was quick, but Aaron Donald wasn't as big as Dexter Lawrence, and he makes everybody better around him. Brian Burns has come on, former Panther. It's unfortunate that Kayvon Thibodeau got hurt and has been out of the lineup, or maybe the Giants would have even more sacks, and maybe their defense would be even more dominant. But Lawrence is absolutely he's probably the best at his position currently playing right now with Donald's retirement.
Yeah, the front of that Giants defense is not the reason they are 2-6. We can say that much. And also, Dexter didn't have a sack in that previous rematch. You might want to try to get to Jaden Daniels this time around. All right, let's move on and talk about America's Game of the Week. And this one is going to be a doozy at Lambeau Field, as the 6-1 Lions travel to face the 6-2 Green Bay Packers a little bit later here on Fox. And this one has playoff implications and also a playoff field. Do you think this could be an NFC Championship preview?
Yes, it could be in the same division. Obviously, only one's going to be the division winner. The other will have to be a wild card and play on the road. And that's the first thing that jumps out to me, by the way, is that, the last couple of times that the Lions have been at Lambeau, they've been meaningful games for both teams. And the Lions have won those games. That's usually been a very tough place to play. Both quarterbacks are playing very well when healthy. I mean, Jared Goff is another one you could put in that, MVP, at least offensive MVP category candidate. For his last 3 or 4 games have been just spot on. And even with some injuries and Jamison Williams being suspended and their speedy receiver out, the Lions, Aiden Hutchinson has been out on defense, but their offense, I mean, they're scoring at the highest rate of any team in the league. And what I like about their offense is that they can grind it and chew up the clock with the running game they have with with Gibbs and David Montgomery, and obviously they can throw it. They have a lot of different receivers. It isn't just one guy say, hey, this is the Jamar Chase. We'll try to double him or whatever. Can't do that with this team. Whether it's Amon-Ra St. Brown or however Laporta's had big games from the tight end spot. They can score in so many ways, and they can score quickly, or they can protect the lead when they have it, which takes a strain off their defense. And Green Bay's defense is much improved from last year, where that cost them, I think, a chance to go further in the playoffs.
That is so very true. The Lions put up a 50-burger last week against the Tennessee Titans, and Jared Goff didn't even throw for 100 yards. Just kind of a wild, fascinating stat there from last week. All right, let's shift gears as well. Let's talk about Cowboys and Falcons. Cowboys coming off yet another loss to the San Francisco 49ers. They're below 500. Does Dallas have an identity crisis on their hands?
Well, I think they put themselves personnel-wise in this situation by not having a running game or another option, a solid running game. Let's just say a reliable running game. And I know running backs have been devalued, but you're looking at certain teams who have added running backs, whether it's a Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs. We just talked about Green Bay, and they've made a difference for their team. Joe Mixon also in Houston. So it's using the running back wisely. And Dallas didn't put that forward with this year's team, and they really didn't have a lot of offensive options other than CeeDee Lamb for Dak Prescott to throw to. So I do think, whether it's an identity or not, I just don't think they're in a groove. And the division is there for them to grab, but the Eagles and Washington, obviously with the Giants fading here, we saw that against San Francisco. They have the capability. Their defense isn't as dominant as it has been, so that puts more pressure on Prescott, whose numbers are down comparatively to last year. So I would just, Dallas just seems to be lacking in key areas. Some of it's personnel. Some of it does seem to be, and I don't want to say coaching, but maybe the discipline part of players with the coaching when it matters the most. Whereas Atlanta is coming off a bit of an offensive run here. And I don't know how good the Atlanta defense is right now. I see it as improving, but I do know the Atlanta offense, as long as Kirk Cousins is on, they can be kind of like a Detroit team. They have two running backs who can pile it on, and they have a group of receivers that Cousins can get the ball to, Drake London being one of them, Kyle Pitts, the tight end, the other that stand out.
Yeah, that is so very true. And Dallas needs to figure it out fast, because there's a lot of teams in the NFC that have already piled up wins. So it could get out of hand very quickly for them. All right, Chris, before I let you go, let's talk about something else that's coming up very soon. November 19th, this book, That Deserves a Wow, coming to shelves. You can pre-order it as well. What do we make of this? Because it's about excellence, compassion, connection. You've been around some of the biggest sports stories the last several decades. Break down this book for me, and what are some of the favorites for you?
Well, I mean, there's moments at Super Bowls, at World Series, where I could put you could be with me right in the middle of what that feels like to be covering it for network television at Fox, and then responding to what happens. And then there's some moments beyond sports at a World Series, and an earthquake takes place, which I had experienced at the Olympics, and a bomb goes off. You're covering a NASCAR race, the Daytona 500, and the face of the sport, the top driver, dies in a crash. So it changes to beyond sports, and it's really my view and how of covering these events. And there's some lighter moments with some personalities like Charles Barkley, Bill Murray, the comedian, wrote the foreword. Along the way, really fascinating people from Mike Tyson to Tom Brady. There's some golf stories in there, but it really mirrors sports. Well, nothing brings people together like a sporting event, and sports has done that in my life. And so I try to kind of take people along this journey through decades, from ESPN to Fox Sports, and still going at Fox, so that you get to know people along the way, and those wow moments in sports, which is where the book kind of originated from, and some difficult moments in sports. It does reflect and mirror a lot of what our lives are like, and we kind of live them through sports. So I hope people enjoy it. I think it is ultimately an inspiration, and I think there's a lot of ways that people can relate to this book and to sports in their own life. Yeah, the human effect is an impact that I think a lot of people resonates with. And my last question before I let you go is, we might circle back to it, but in your eyes, what deserves a wow so far this NFL season? Well, I mean, first of all, that's what I said when I saw it. I wasn't calling that game, but when I saw the Hail Mary, the replay of that with Jane Daniels against the Bears, I was like, whoa, that, wow, came to my mind. obviously the Dodger rally in that World Series to go on and win. But yeah, the NFL season provides wow moments every Sunday, every weekend, whether it's Monday, Thursday, whatever the NFL plays. So I'm sure we're going to have more wow moments. I've had a few others through the course of calling games this year, some individual performances, but they're all out there, and sometimes we can relate to them. Sometimes it's like wow, like ooh, that wasn't very good, and we've had some of those as well. So they're always out there, and it's always good to say wow, and that's how that began. It was kind of a natural thing watching sports, and it kind of stuck with me, and I've used it. Most people do too. I think we say it more than we realize.
Yeah, wow can be also a good thing, but also a bad thing, and plenty more wow moments throughout this season. We're at the halfway point. Plenty to go, though. Chris Myers, appreciate your time as always here on Football Sunday Now.
All right, thank you. Enjoy the games.
All right, thank you so much to Chris Myers for that conversation. Of course, you can vote on this poll. Who do you think will win America's Game of the Week? The Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers. Lambeau Field will be rocking. They will be playing the NFC North, leading the NFC North reigning champion Detroit Lions today. Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love and company. He is nursing that groin injury, but he's expected to start for the Packers on that field today. So as this one will have a monumental magnitude, a potential playoff preview. One of these teams could win the division. The other one will have to sneak in by a wild card spot. And we want to thank Chris Myers, the NFL broadcaster for Fox, but also soon-to-be author with this coming out November 19th. The That Deserves a Wow. Great conversation with him, as always. All right, a couple of Live Now looks as we headed to a quick break. The NFC North Minnesota Vikings trying to catch up after a hot 5-0 start to the season. They play on Sunday Night Football. It snowed a little bit earlier on Halloween in Minnesota. That could be good vibes for that franchise. And also a live look, a dreary Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz, the stadium there hosting the Atlanta Falcons, Dallas Cowboys. Coming up today, you can see people filtering into this building. A lot of uncertainty with the Dallas Cowboys after a stretch of 3 straight losses. We'll have that and much more here on Football Sunday Now after this. All right, welcome back in here to Football Sunday Now. I'm the host, Andy Mack. Let's get into this at the midway point of the NFL season. A lot of football left to be played, but some of these games today are going to be very critical for the two teams on the field. And that goes for this game being played in Atlanta, Georgia. The Atlanta Falcons, the NFC South leading Atlanta Falcons hosting the Dallas Cowboys. A little bit of uncertainty chaos within the Cowboys facility a little bit as we're following the latest, coming off 3 straight losses on the field, arriving there for this game. CeeDee Lamb, you see walking in. He was a big factor in that loss to the San Francisco 49ers. A couple of touchdown receptions there. Dak Prescott trying to figure out this offense. And we're also following the latest in terms of the running back room as Zeke Elliott is not traveling to Atlanta for disciplinary reasons. A person with knowledge of the decision tells Calvin Watkins, the Dallas Morning News Intrepid Cowboys beat reporter. And we're going to be joined right now by Calvin on site for this game a little bit later on, Cowboys and Falcons. But no Zeke today. He did not travel with the Cowboys. What do we make of this, and do we have any other information on this?
Yeah, apparently this has been brewing for a while. Upset about his role with the team. Started the season opener against the Cleveland Browns. Didn't start anymore until last week. Cowboys were in San Francisco. And he told reporters that he talked to the coaches about his role, about what was going on. I think finally everything just blew up over the weekend. He had discussions with the team about his role again against the Falcons. They said, "You're not going to play much." So he said, "You know what? Well, why don't you even need to go on the trip?" Other things were going on. Apparently, he was late to a few meetings. Yeah, now the Cowboys decided, well, not only not going to play, he's not even going to make the trip. So he's not going to be here in Atlanta, as you said, and we'll see if he has a future with the Cowboys after today.
Yeah, there are reports that he's a distraction within that facility for the Dallas Cowboys. Not good for a guy that is in his second stint in Dallas, trying to come back and make a resurgence in his career. But what does the future hold for Zeke in Dallas? Is that in question now?
I don't think he's got much of a future. They got Rico Dowdle, they got Dalvin Cook, they got Deuce Vaughn, they got Hunter Lefty. All these guys are, I guess you could say, are ahead of him. Today, Rico Dowdle and Dalvin Cook are going to start against the Falcons, with Zeke sitting at home watching us on stream. But I don't believe he has a future here. The Cowboys brought him back based off the last 5 games of the 2023 season when he was in New England. Jerry Jones thought that was a productive Zeke Elliott. That's why he brought him back to the team. But ever since the season started back in September, Zeke has been a bystander. He's getting less than 35% of the offensive snaps. Usually Zeke is going to play at least 51% of the snaps, right?
Yeah.
And he's not even getting that. So I would think on Monday morning when the Cowboys review the game tape of the Falcons, regardless of what happens today, they'll probably make a decision about Zeke Elliott's future. And I would think they would have to let him go.
All right, one way or the other, we could learn as soon as Monday morning. And Calvin, it's no secret this rushing game for the Cowboys, the worst in the league in terms of rushing yards per game, rushing touchdowns. But you also mentioned Dalvin Cook and Rico Dowdle. How does it go forward from here? Is Dalvin Cook going to get more play, more carries coming off the practice squad? What do we make of what's this offense, this running game is going to go against the Falcons?
Andy, I think me and you can run better than some of these guys, to be honest with you.
Why not me?
I mean, they're last in the league in all kinds of running categories, right? Rico Dowdle's going to start. And then after that, we believe Dalvin Cook's going to get some attempts. One of the biggest problems the Cowboys have had this year is finding a rhythm to the running game.
Yeah.
They've been behind in a couple of games, particularly to New Orleans and Baltimore, which has forced them to pass the ball a whole lot more. So when they've been in some games where it's been manageable, like the Steelers game a couple of weeks ago, they were able to run the ball, and as a team, they rushed for over 100 yards. As a team, Rico Dowdle had career highs in carries and yards. Other than that, the running game has been up and down. Now, to have a successful running game, you need a good offensive line. They have 2 rookies on the offensive line, a left tackle and center, the All-Pro, Hall of Fame right guard. Zach Martin's not playing up to his capabilities. This might be his last year. All kinds of problems with the running game. I'm not even sure if Rico Dowdle and Dalvin Cook can solve because it's been bad all year.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for this offense to be in. They're going through an identity crisis as well. And let's talk about Dalvin Cook, because you mentioned Zeke Elliott and what he gave, the glimpses in New England that made Dallas feel like they could bring him back. Dalvin didn't really have those glimpses in New York with the Jets, but he did look like he had a spark last week against the 49ers. Am I mistaken in that at all?
No, I think he just needs some more attempts. You're right. When he was in New York, he had a shoulder problem and those kinds of things. This is a four-time Pro Bowler. So Dalvin Cook knows what he's doing. He's in great shape. He just needs the attempts. Mike McCarthy said that all year long about the running game in general. But I did like some of the things that Dalvin Cook did against the 49ers. And if he can get a couple more carries here against Atlanta, maybe he might be the solution this Cowboys offense is looking for.
No, that is so very true. We'll see what comes of this game. They're coming off that three-game losing streak, and they have a tough opponent in the Atlanta Falcons. And across the ball, they say Bijan Robinson, the star out of Texas, the Longhorns running back that is really making his statement, a stamp on the league in his second year. What do we make of this game in general, and what do the Cowboys need to do to break that losing streak?
But they got to get some pressure on the quarterback, and that's something they failed to do since they lost Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. Kirk Cousins, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, is in the top 10 in a lot of different passing categories. Let me tell you something, Andy. If this game gets close, Kirk Cousins, Captain Kirk, is going to win a ball game. He's among the league leaders in fourth quarter comebacks this season. As you said, they got Robinson, running back from Texas. He's expecting to have a good game today. Falcons are not the whole Falcons. They are a much different team. Raheem Morris as their head coach. There's a whole different vibe here in Atlanta in comparison to the last couple of years when Arthur Smith was the head coach. And the Cowboys are going to have their hands full. They don't have to pass rush, as I said. Offense, we've talked about the running game. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are still trying to develop the chemistry and the passing attack. It's going to be a long day for the visiting team from Texas.
Yeah, that is a very good point. You mentioned just the vibes in Atlanta and what they're doing. Captain Kirk, the swag that Kirk brings, the new age kind of terminology that he's getting with all those kids there in Atlanta. But you mentioned, let's look at the other side for Dallas and Mike McCarthy. The vibes aren't flowing in Dallas, and we've seen it. Jerry Jones going on the radio. We talked about that, threatening to fire a radio host. We saw it last week with Trayvon Diggs coming out of the locker room and talking to a reporter about something he said on social media on X. And of course, we're just learning of this Zeke Elliott. Is there a concern with Mike McCarthy losing the locker room and just the leadership within that locker room?
Players like Mike McCarthy, and Jerry Jones has publicly supported Mike McCarthy. Jerry does not believe that firing a coach during the season is beneficial. A couple of weeks ago on the radio in Dallas, he said he regretted firing Wade Phillips in the middle of the season, replacing him with Jason Garrett. So McCarthy's not going anywhere, and the players love Mike McCarthy. So you try to figure out what's the problem. The problem is that they don't have the personnel necessary to compete at an elite level, especially last week when they played against San Francisco. So that's the biggest problem. Everyone likes Mike McCarthy, but he doesn't have the talent. So who do you blame for this? Well, you blame Jerry Jones because he's the general manager and the owner of this team, and he did not put forth a very good roster for Mike McCarthy. The depth on this team is very lacking. Yeah. Draft picks they've had in the last couple of years, particularly last year's first-round pick, Mazi Smith, has underachieved. Tyler Guyton, first-round pick this year, starting left tackle. He has struggled at times. So he's trying to find a way here to get going. Now, Jerry will say, hey, I had to pay Dak Prescott a lot of money, $60 million, the highest contract ever for a quarterback. I got to take care of CeeDee Lamb, second highest contract for a wide receiver in the history of the league. We get that. We all understand that. But what about the rest of the roster? It's lacking badly and showing up on Sundays right now.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Mike McCarthy, a player favorite, a player's coach. So it's good that you put there, and you didn't really, you answered your own question of maybe who does this rely on, and now it's on Jerry Jones. And if they lose today, it could be a lost season. Is that the feeling in Dallas as a whole?
Yeah, because next week they got Philadelphia coming to town. And you know, the Eagles and those NFC rivalries, anything can happen. But the Eagles are just a much better team. If you remember, Andy, last year, the Eagles started the year 10-1, and they were the favorite to win the division. Guess who won it? Cowboys. So now the Eagles are going to remember what happened. But on the flip side of this, Cowboys have 5 division games left on their schedule. So regardless of what happens today, a lot of the players in this Cowboys locker room are going to point to that. Hey, we got 5 division games left. There's a chance that we can get back in this thing and win the division. Me and you know the reality of it. That's not going to happen. So they lose today. It's going to be a long, long week back in Texas.
Yeah, a long week there for America's team as they kind of try to right the ship a little bit. Dallas coming off those 3 straight losses in Atlanta today. All right, Calvin, I appreciate your time always here on Football Sunday Now. Great insight there to America's team. Always an interesting conversation, no matter their record.
All right, take care.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's continue on. Great conversation there as they take on the Atlanta Falcons on the road in Atlanta, Georgia. Mercedes-Benz, the Superdome there. Of course, we're following all the latest here on Live Now from Fox. A live look in Minnesota as they gear up for their game on Sunday Night Football. Let's set up this next live shot and let's get ready for more here on Football Sunday Now. All right, a live look there in Minnesota as we're gearing up for all the top games here on this middle of the season. We're at the midway point of the season, and maybe the moment of the season so far came last week in Landover, Maryland, as the Washington Commanders, saved by Jaden Daniels, the heroic 52-yard Hail Mary completion, supplanted them over the Chicago Bears. I want to take you out to this viral moment from our Fox 5 team there on the ground. Chad Ricardo caught up with a fan in the middle of the moment. Let's listen into this briefly.
I feel as though we won, for real. We lost.
All right, what a moment there for that whole organization, that whole fan base as a whole. The Washington Commanders taking it past the Chicago Bears. We're going to be joined on the ground for their next matchup by Fox 5's Chad Ricardo as the Commanders travel to face the New York Giants. Thank you so much for joining us here on Football Sunday Now. Coming off such a high, how do they replicate that today in New York?
Yeah, I think that is an absolute great point. And I believe that just like everything that this team has done, it starts with the leadership of this team and organization, and that begins with Dan Quinn. What we have heard from Dan Quinn say in each and every presser that he has is that this is a team who takes this season week by week. They prepare for each opponent the same way because they prepare first by working on themselves. This Washington Commanders team is coming out here to play the New York Giants, of course, at 6-2, the Giants at 2-6, but they are not looking at that record. They're going to come out here and continue to use the fundamentals that this team has used to use that to get it done today in the Meadowlands.
Yeah, and Jaden Daniels, arguably the favorite for the Rookie of the Year in the MVP conversation. Can you speak to just the vibes in Washington right now? Because it's been a long time since the Commanders fans, the Redskins fans, have had somebody to root for in this way. Can you describe the feeling there in that region?
Yeah. Man, when you look at it, Jaden Daniels, and when you want to talk about the impact that it is that he has had, not just on this football team, but about all of the DMV and this fan base in total. We've been walking around here at MetLife, and we have spoken with Commanders fans, and JD5 is the first thing that it is that they talk about. It's almost as though he has become the football savior of a program that was stuck in relative purgatory for some 20-some-odd years. The number 2 overall pick in the draft, you look at what it is that he's been able to do out there on the football field. 7 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions, completing over 71% of his passes. As we said, the leader in the box right now for the Offensive Rookie of the Year and potentially an MVP candidate as well. JD5 has restored the faith in this organization.
Yeah, such an electric player, the Heisman Trophy winner, coming over 2nd overall pick, trying to lead him to the playoffs. And with this division kind of uncertainty, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants 2-6 right now, how much are they they really relishing this moment to try to take command in this division today?
Sure. You win today and you're looking at improving to a record of 7-2. Now that's extraordinarily important because, again, before you can accomplish anything else, you have to win that division first. The Dallas Cowboys fell under 500 last week. They've got another tough game coming up this week against the Atlanta Falcons. That's going to be a must-win for them. The Philadelphia Eagles, after looking a little bit suspect for a couple of weeks, they've begun to turn it on the last 2 weeks with 2 huge victories for that. These are 2 teams that are going to face off in about 10 days when we're talking about the Commanders and the Eagles. So the Washington Commanders want to win this game, move to a record of 7-2, and begin preparing for that matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles coming up on the following Thursday.
Yeah, not to overlook it, but it's a big one coming up in the NFC East. All right, Chad, thank you so much. Enjoy the game. It's always great to talk with you here on Football Sunday Now.
Raise hell.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's continue on here. Great conversation there, a great moment for that. The DMV, Jaden Daniels and company off to such a hot start. And of course, you can see just this coming out of the tunnel as they're gearing up for this game at MetLife Stadium. The New York Giants hosting the 6-2 Washington Commanders in command of that division as they try to secure their spot moving forward. But what a talent, what a star. We're following it all here on Live Now from Fox on Football Sunday Now. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in here to Football Sunday Now. A live look there at Lambeau Field. The stage is set for this monumental clash in the NFC North. The Detroit Lions travel there to Green Bay, Wisconsin to face the Packers. We'll have more coverage as this is America's game of the week as the reigning NFC North champs have really taken it to the Green Bay Packers in recent matchups outside of the most recent one in 2023. The Lions, 4 of the last 5 they've taken against Green Bay, and that wasn't the case back in the early 2000s as the Lions reeling usually in the basement of that division. The Packers had their way with so many in that NFC North. That is not the case anymore. So let's continue to follow it, and let's take you out to someone that will be on hand for this game at Lambeau Field in just a little bit for America's Game of the Week. Fox's 6's Lily Zhao has more on what to expect today. The matchup of this week has to be America's Game of the Week, and that is between the Packers and Lions at historic Lambeau Field. It's going to be an exciting one with, of course, Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady on the call for this one. 4:25 Eastern at Lambeau Field in the frozen tundra, as it's maybe getting a little bit colder in that region. But a lot to get to, and these two teams fighting for the NFC North title. Two teams with 6 wins already. We're going to bring into the conversation Fox 6's Lily Zhao. Lily, thank you so much for joining us here on Football Sunday Now. This matchup is going to be big, and it's also going to be big because Jordan Love is going to be in the starting lineup for the Packers at quarterback. How has he progressed coming off that groin injury that took him out of the game last week?
Yeah, he's looking a lot better. And, the good thing was that he was able to practice this week. I don't know if he had not have practiced this week with that groin injury, if he would be expected to play. So that was a good sign this week. And of course, it was just good news that he avoided any sort of major injury on top of already dealing with that sprained MCL. So again, Jordan going through an MCL and of course a groin injury. But I think the fact that he is playing today is a really good sign for the Green Bay Packers, right? Because they have one of the toughest schedules remaining in the NFL. And it starts today against the Detroit Lions. And like you mentioned, it's a battle for first place also in the NFC North. So this game today is important to win. It's important to kind of set the tone for the Packers going the rest of the way. So having their starting quarterback back, I think, is a really good sign for them. And they're going to need him because this Lions team is super tough, and their offense certainly can put up points in a flurry.
Yeah, as good as it gets in the NFL in terms of the Lions. But you mentioned Jordan Love back in the lineup, but without Jordan in the lineup the last several weeks, of course, kind of in the midpoint of the first half of the season, it was Malik Willis stepping up in a big way, leading the Packers to some significant wins. How much, if any, could we see Malik Willis this week, knowing what he's done in the past several weeks for this Packers team?
I would love to see some packages with Malik Willis, but I do believe, obviously, if Jordan is going to get the start, you're going to see Jordan Love. And maybe Malik Willis comes in if, hopefully he doesn't get hurt. Hopefully everything is okay. But I think maybe we do see Malik come in if that is the case, or if Jordan just doesn't feel good with that groin later on. But what Malik has done this week has been phenomenal. What he's done this season has been even better. And what I do love about Malik Willis is that he's such a team-oriented guy, right? He was asked this week if, how he's playing this season is not even just for the Packers, it's for the rest of the NFL, because he's auditioning for a starting position potentially with another team. And he was asked about that opportunity. And he said, listen, I'm just focused on the season right now, because doing that is to think outside of this season, this game, this week is doing this team and myself a disservice. So he really is a team-oriented guy, and what he's been able to bring and, be 3-0 essentially as the quarterback has been phenomenal.
Yeah, that is so very true, and we'll see. It'll be fun to see Matt LaFleur integrate Malik Willis, at least in some capacity, to give the Lions defense something to think about if Malik Willis is out there, maybe alongside Jordan Love. That could be a fun caveat to the offensive game plan. Let's talk about this Lions team, because they're the reigning NFC North champions. Dan Campbell has them playing as good as anyone in the league, a 50-burger against the Tennessee Titans. How do you slow down this Lions offense, and is that even possible?
That's what we're gonna have to find out, right? I think the Packers defense, they're in for their toughest test this season, and they know it. They know that this Lions team, as Xavier McKinney said this week, they can embarrass any team in the NFL. They certainly showed it against the Titans last week with 52 points. So the Packers defense doesn't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be embarrassed at home. And so this is a big statement game for them, but it's going to be hard to slow them down. I mean, we saw Jared Goff go out there and he didn't have his best game, but this team still put up 50 points. Different guys were throwing touchdowns that weren't the quarterback. And so this is a very versatile offense. And so maybe the best case scenario is you put together very long scoring drives to keep the Lions offense off the field, and that might be their best defense, right? Because this offense can certainly score in a flurry. So I think the Packers have to have long, sustained drives, and they have to get to Jared Goff. The pressure up front has to get home for them to have a chance to win.
That is a good point. Keeping them on the sideline might be the best defense of all for this Lions offense. You mentioned also the Packers' schedule the remaining way, and they have backloaded the NFC North because of what it can bring to it. What are we looking at in terms of this, and how pivotal is this game? What's the magnitude of this matchup?
I think it's huge. Luckily they have a bye week coming up next week, but then after that you have the Bears and you have the Niners coming to town, and you have a lot of primetime games late, and you have a bunch of NFC North games slotted in there late as well. And so this really begins a tough stretch, because if you drop one to the Lions today, you have the Bears coming up. If you drop one there, you're kind of in trouble in the division, because you have to keep pace with the rest of the teams in the NFC North to even kind of get a playoff berth at the end of it. So this game, I think, is pivotal. I think it's going to be a tough game for the Packers. They have to play their best game of the season. I don't think that we've seen really a complete game put together on both sides of the football. That needs to happen today because, again, the Lions, the Bears, the Niners, they're all coming. It gets harder from there. So they have to play their best game today and just feel good about themselves going into the bye.
The Lions, the Bears, the Packers, oh my, it's going to be a fun one in the NFC North. And, of course, maybe a bye week next week, even if the outcome isn't good, because we've all heard about the Lions hangover. If you play the Lions, you usually lose the next week. That won't be the case because they are on a bye next week. So plenty to get to. Fun talking with you. Enjoy Lambeau Field. It's going to be a fun one. This is a big matchup, and it feels like a playoff game. So we appreciate it, Lily, here on Football Sunday Now.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you so much for that conversation. A live look there at Lambeau Field. A little bit of a gloomy day, a little bit of a rainy day in Green Bay, Wisconsin for this big matchup in the NFC North. And it's hard to understate just how pivotal this one will be in terms of that division, in terms of that conference in the NFC as a whole. Who you got? This is a post from the NFL on Fox. Jordan Love, Jared Goff in this picture. Both teams with 6 wins already, 6-1 for the Lions, 6-2 for the Packers as well. So plenty of excitement there for this game. America's Game of the Week coming up here at 4:25 Eastern Time. Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady on the call. Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi keeping everyone company and cozy there for this one at a chilly Lambeau Field. But Jordan Love will be in uniform, expected to start, the quarterback for the Packers, coming off that groin injury that took him out of the game. But they will be in good hands with Malik Willis as he's led them to a pair of victories already this year as the backup, as the replacement to Jordan Love after that knee injury in Week 1 in Brazil against the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, I'm Andy Mack. You're on Football Sunday Now. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in here to Football Sunday Now. I'm the host, Andy Mack. Just about 40 minutes until kickoff of this Week 9 slate of games. Plenty to get to, plenty of excitement as teams try to jockey for position now as we inch closer to the playoffs. A live look right now in Atlanta, Georgia. The Dallas Cowboys on the road to take on the NFC South leading Atlanta Falcons. Live picture in Minnesota, the site of Sunday Night Football. Plenty to get to in terms of that. And also in New York, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, you can see 2 old teammates, Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels, catching up ahead of this NFC East battle between the Washington Commanders and New York Giants. Jaden Daniels can thank Malik Neighbors in a big way for that Heisman Trophy, one of the most prolific duos in LSU history. This also coming off that Hail Mary, Jaden Daniels lifting them past the Chicago Bears, the #1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, last week at home. A big win for them, a signature win, if you will, for Jaden Daniels early in his career. And, of course, we're following all the latest here on this Football Sunday. Now, this coming up, the 6-2 Washington Commanders travel to the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium, 1 o'clock Eastern. We just talked to our Fox 5 team there on DC about this. Also, some inactives that we're following from the NFL Network. Zeke Elliott is out for the Dallas Cowboys. T. Higgins, Jermaine Burton, both out for the Bengals. That's going to be a big impact for Joe Burrow and company with the Bengals. Marlon Humphrey is active, is a go against the Bo Nix-led Denver Broncos. Amari Cooper in the recent trade. Commanders Brian Robinson, both out today. So Josh Allen, one of his new favorite targets, not in play. And maybe Austin Eckler getting more run in terms of that Commanders backfield. The Titans running back Tony Pollard also up and a go. So we're getting to all of that here on Football Sunday Now, as of course we're also following the Colts making this decision to go Anthony Richardson benched in terms of Joe Flacco. And let's get to more about this. The Sunday night matchup here between the Minnesota Vikings coming off such a hot start. Let's take you right now out there as you looking live at this venue for this Sunday night matchup in Minneapolis on a cold day. I want to take you out to our Fox 9 team. Pierre Nugent previews this big matchup. Welcome back in here to Football Sunday Now. I'm Andy Mack. Missed calls, not Minnesota nice to the Vikings after a 5-0 start. They've lost their last 2 games, but they try to flex their muscles one more time on Sunday Night Football as this game flexed into prime time as the Vikings, they host the Indianapolis Colts coming up here on Sunday night. So exciting for this game. Let's bring to the conversation right now Fox 9's Pierre Nugent. Thank you so much for joining us here on Football Sunday Now. How does Minnesota get their mojo back going into Sunday night?
Well, Andy, first and foremost, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you. I think the first thing and foremost is they've got to get a little mojo back on this offense, and they're hoping to get a little bit of a shot in the arm because they're hopeful to have newly acquired left tackle Cam Robinson at left tackle to supplant the injured Christian Darrisaw. And they are also hoping, it's trending in this direction, that tight end TJ Hawkinson will make his return to the lineup for the first time since Christmas, when we saw him go down with an injury last year, tore his ACL and MCL last year in a game against the Lions. And that will certainly be a welcome addition because right now the tight end position is almost non-existent for the Minnesota Vikings. This offense is run primarily through Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones. And after that, it's kind of everybody's trying to contribute in their own way. So offensively, while this team is, yes, 5-2, they have lost 2 in a row, but offensively is where I'm looking at this team to try to pick up, some of the pieces here and try to get this mojo back on offense, because right now, offensively, they've just been so over the last handful of weeks.
Yeah, Sam Darnold come back down to earth just slightly here over the last couple of weeks. And you mentioned the injury to Christian Darrisaw, ACL, MCL, out for the remainder of the year. They gave him $100+ million in the offseason, a big deal for the big man at left tackle. But like you said, they already have answered the question, how do you replace Christian Darrisaw? They went out and they got their man, that being Cam Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars. How much of it is plug and play for the Vikings? And Cam Robinson, he was benched in Jacksonville. How much can he replace Darrisaw there on that line?
Well, it's certainly hard to replace a guy like Christian Darrisaw, who is an all-pro type talent. But Greg Robinson, he's no slouch in his own right. I understand what happened in Jacksonville. Probably it could have been a situation where they maybe were looking to shop him and didn't want him getting injured before they were trying to shop him. But he's certainly a very capable replacement. He was at practice today for the Vikings. The Vikings are still trying to determine whether or not he will play on Sunday. If he goes through practice today and goes through practice tomorrow without incident, then I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be your starting left tackle for the Vikings on Sunday when they take on the Colts. It's going to probably be a little bit of a drop-off in performance because when you have Christian Darrisaw there at left tackle, you kind of feel good that you can leave him on an island with a lot of the defensive ends that he faces on a weekly basis. Cam Robinson might not be the same But at the same time, too, I do expect, big things from him in terms of replacing Christian Darrisaw. I think he's certainly a capable replacement for him, and the Vikings better hope he is, because they're right in the middle of a dogfight here in the NFC North.
Yeah, it's the best division in football. Like you mentioned, we'll see what happens in front of Sam Darnold and company. But let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts, because they have been in the headlines, in the spotlight all week as they bench Anthony Richardson in place of Joe Flacco. And we've talked a lot about defensive coordinator Brian Flores loves to get after the quarterback. Now you have a 39-year-old guy at quarterback for Joe Flacco for the Colts. Is this a gift for the Vikings defense?
To be perfectly honest with you, I actually don't think it's a gift for the Vikings defense. I think this is actually an upgrade at the quarterback position right now anyway for the Colts. You saw it earlier in the season when Joe Flacco was under center. This offense just seemed to hum a little bit better with Joe Flacco under center, and he seems to be an ageless wonder. We saw the way he played football for the Browns last year to end the season. I bet the Browns would have loved to have Joe Flacco start games for them at the beginning of the season, given the way things went down with Deshaun Watson, how poorly they played on offense. But I think this, for right now, I'm not saying that the Colts absolutely give up on Anthony Richardson. I don't see any reason to give up on Anthony Richardson. I still think he's got a lot of talent and he's got a lot of good football ahead of him in the NFL. But I think this is a situation where he benefits from sitting back and watching a veteran kind of take command and conduct this offense in a way that he hasn't been able to do. Joe Flacco, I think, is the better option right now on their roster at quarterback. So I think the Vikings will have their hands a little bit more full with Joe Flacco. I mean, does Joe Flacco strike complete terror into my heart? Maybe not. But at the same time, too, he's a savvy veteran in this league. He's won a Super Bowl. He still has good football left in him. It's going to be a challenge for the Vikings secondary.
Yeah, he's not necessarily a nightmare too much, but he can certainly sling it around, and they love to use it in a way with Jonathan Taylor and company there in Indianapolis. All right, before I let you go, my last question, because you talked about it, NFC North, such a very difficult division, 6-1 Lions, 6-2 Packers, the Vikings there right in the mix of it at 5-2. When you look at this schedule, how much pressure is there to continue to stack wins in a division that might get 2 or 3 teams in the playoffs?
Well, there's no room for error, as you can see. The Vikings were in first place about a week and a half ago, and they dropped all the way to third. They could have dropped all the way to fourth if not for a Hail Mary pass in Washington, D.C. that doomed the Chicago Bears earlier this week. But there's no room for error, Andy. There's just absolutely no room for error. And right now, the Vikings have to take advantage of the schedule that is presented to them right now, because after they face Indianapolis, they have games against Jacksonville and Tennessee. Both of those games will be on the road, but those are 2 teams right now that have struggled all season long. The Vikings will be favorites in those games despite being the road team. And this is the area of the schedule where you really need to string together wins. If you can win 3 in a row and move to 8-2, you set yourself up for a great run to finish out the season. You still have the Packers, you still have the Lions, you still have to face the Bears twice. Those games, those 4 games there in the division are going to really make or break your season, in my opinion. But over the next 3 weeks, the next 3 games, really, I should say, is where the Vikings really have to make sure they get in the win column, because they're going to be favored in each of those games.
Win games they should win. They rightly try to do it. Like you mentioned, they played the Packers at home in the second to last week, and then the final week of the regular season, they travel to Detroit to face the reigning NFC North champion Detroit Lions. All right, it's going to be a fun one. NFC North, always great. Pierre, thank you again for joining us here on Football Sunday Now.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, thank you so much for that conversation. A live look there in Minneapolis at the Bank. U.S. Bank Stadium will be rocking tonight for the Sunday night football match of the Vikings against the Colts. And some interesting news coming out of Indianapolis this week in terms of quarterback, as Anthony Richardson benched after tapping out against the Houston Texans last Sunday. In his place will be 39-year-old Joe Flacco. We'll have that and much more here on Football Sunday Now after this quick 2-minute timeout. Welcome back in here to Football Sunday Now. I'm Andy Mack. Let's get into this bizarre scenario taking place in Indianapolis as the 2023 fourth overall pick, Anthony Richardson, getting benched for a nearly 40-year-old Joe Flacco. This comes after poor play, but also tapping out of the game against the Houston Texans last Sunday. As the Colts, they have made the decision to bench Anthony Richardson, put him in timeout, to make Joe Flacco their QB1 after his tenure with the Ravens, the Browns. We're going to be joined right now by NFL QB free agent Reid Sinnett. Reid, thank you so much for joining us here on Football Sunday Now to discuss the latest, because this is an interesting scenario. Plenty of people have different opinions on it. Where do you stand in terms of Anthony Richardson getting benched and Joe Flacco starting in his place?
It's always good to see you. So I think this is really interesting. And Anthony Richardson had accuracy problems in college, and he doesn't magically have those solved when he comes to the NFL. He was amazing at the combine. He put up crazy numbers. He's such an amazing athlete, but that doesn't translate to being a great quarterback. And we've seen it this year. He's barely completing 50% of his passes. He's turning the ball over a lot. They're designing quarterback run for him. He's fumbling and not protecting himself. So if the Colts are in a position to win, which I think they are, Joe Flacco is going to give them the best opportunity moving forward. And it's unfortunate for this young quarterback to have his growth potentially stunted briefly, but these guys need more time to develop. And just because Anthony Richardson was such a freak at the combine does not mean that he's an NFL ready quarterback. And I think it's showing.
Yeah, and your opinion is very similar to what a lot of people hear. Let's talk about the head tap moment, because other players on the field, the wide receivers, the running backs, defensive backs, if they're tired, they tap their helmet, kind of signal to the sideline that they need to get out of the game. They need a blow. This is what Anthony Richardson's done. It is unprecedented in terms of a quarterback doing it. How much do you think that factored into the Colts' decision?
I don't know that that factored into the Colts' decision necessarily, but it is something I had never seen before. And I had seen a comment that, he's throwing big guys off of him and, he's making all these plays on his feet, but those linemen are doing that on every single down. So it was a really interesting move, especially to go into a 3rd and long and just throw Joe Flacco out there. But I was hoping that he would have at least said that, I got banged up or got the wind knocked out of me, something. But to go straight to I just got tired, it was kind of a crazy move. So I don't necessarily think it had anything to do with the benching. I think his play is speaking for that, but it was definitely something I've never seen before.
Yeah, it is something that, like you said, no one really had ever seen before. A quarterback doing that in the 3rd quarter of a game against a division rival as well. So going up against the Houston Texans, Anthony Richardson benched. And the comments afterwards, we've seen Anthony Richardson take ownership, take accountability of that moment. And then the Colts saying that we're not sure if he's going to be a starter. How does that change the dynamic from what happened Sunday to Monday to what the future holds?
Colts are in a great position to win right now. And Shane Steichen showed that he tried to give Anthony Richardson opportunities in the run game. He gave it in the pass game where Anthony Richardson struggled in the intermediate game. He tried to create those opportunities with quarterback run. And when you called it the timely moments, it can be a 10 or 15-yard gain to make up for that intermediate pass game. In 21, with Jalen Hurts carried the ball an average of 9 times a game. And when Anthony Richardson gets that kind of production, he has been out for multiple games at a time. So moving forward, I think Joe Flacco is going to give the Colts offense the best chance to win football games. And Shane Steichen is a great coach, and I think he knows that that's what it's going to take. And Anthony Richardson is going to be able to learn if he takes the right approach, is able to sit behind, observe, ask the right questions, and he might start to grow from behind the scenes, which is, I think, what a lot of these young quarterbacks need, rather than getting thrown into the fire right away.
Yeah, thrust right in there. Joe Flacco notably has so much success, including a Super Bowl as well. And we're also getting reports in from the NFL Network saying that Joe Flacco is a real chance, barring injury, to be the Colts starter for the quarterback for the remainder of the season. And I have to ask you, because there's also rumors and reports out there of trade rumors with Anthony Richardson. You mentioned the numbers, just the physical specimen that he is, that he will likely get some trade suitors as well. Do we think Anthony Richardson's career in Indianapolis is in question?
I don't know if I would go as far to say that, but, it is interesting that they make the draft pick. Shane Steichen's the new head coach. And if they're willing to move on this early, I wonder what kind of value they can get. But I don't know who looks at Anthony Richardson and goes, yeah, we really definitely can work with that, especially when Shane Steichen was the guy who kind of got Jalen Hurts to step up and play to another level, ultimately getting him one of the richest contracts in NFL history. So I don't know that anybody looks at Anthony Richardson and goes, oh, that's the answer to all our problems. But who's to say if he's going to be done in Indianapolis? I do think that Joe Flacco is going to go out and impress for a good chunk of this season. We saw what he did last year for the Cleveland Browns, what he did 2 years ago for the New York Jets. He's still got it. And I'm intrigued to see what he can do and potentially put this Colts team in a position to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be wild to see how he mentors him because Joe Flacco, just a few days older than Anthony Richardson's mother. So just the generational gap there between the two. I do want to ask you, coming back to maybe a little bit more of an overview point about young quarterbacks learning under veteran quarterbacks. We saw it with the benching of Bryce Young, never really got the chance to do it. He was the first overall pick. How valuable is it, do you think, for a young quarterback to sit, to wait a year or two to learn the ways of being a pro, not only being a quarterback on the field, but some of the pro ways off of it?
I think it's huge. And going from college to the NFL, it is a totally different thing. And we see these guys from the big schools like Alabama and Ohio State come in and get thrust onto the field. And many of them struggle right away because the talent level across the ball is getting better. It takes a huge leap up. And talking about Bryce Young and, some of these guys in the last few years who have gotten a chance to go start right away, it's not gone very well for him. And then you look at what the Green Bay Packers have done with Jordan Love. He played behind the scenes. He played behind Aaron Rodgers. He learned the system. He developed trust with the organization. And look at how well he's playing this year. I think that there's huge benefits to letting young players observe and learn and understand what it's like to be an NFL player and then get their chance out there. I think that Drake May, having even waited for a few weeks behind Jacoby Brissett, he got to see how Jacoby prepares. He got to be supported by Jacoby. And even though I think Jacoby would want to be the guy out there, he's still going to support Drake May. And Drake saw what a veteran true leader does to prepare for a game. And it's much different when you're a rookie just getting thrown into the fire.
That is so very true. And let's get to the other conversation because I mentioned Bryce Young, and he's going to be back in the starting lineup for the Carolina Panthers. That's due to an injury due to Andy Dalton. How much do you think he can learn from just a few short weeks? And what do we expect from Bryce Young? Because no Deontay Johnson. They notably didn't have a lot of weapons when he did start earlier this season. They're getting even less right now. What do we make of the situation for Bryce Young, and how does he get his mojo? How does he get his confidence back?
Back position, you get to elevate the play around you, and you also get elevated when the roster around you is talented. Look at Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy, how they're performing with good rosters around them. And Brock Purdy in the last couple of years and Sam Darnold this year more like. But I don't know that we're going to expect something crazy out of Bryce Young. It would be awesome to see him go out and play with confidence and have a great day because you always want to see guys have success, especially when they face that type of adversity. But I wouldn't imagine that we're going to go see Bryce Young throw for 450 yards and look like an absolute world beater, especially with Deontay Johnson out. So we're going to have to see how he's developed. Hopefully it hasn't completely killed his confidence. And that's the biggest part about playing that position at the NFL level. So much of it comes down to confidence, executing the offense, putting the guys around you in a position to have success to go make that play. And when there's not guys that are open or you're not feeling like you're protected, there's not much of a run game, it gets to really be tough sledding.
Yeah, we can see how it snowballs so quickly for even the most talented of quarterbacks. All right, let's move on to another guy, a guy you are very familiar with, Tua Tagovailoa, returning to the field last week for the Miami Dolphins, coming off that scare with those concussions and the history of concussions for him. He did get down. He did slide more. How did you see him be more aware of not taking the big hits that got him in trouble in past years?
It's funny you say that, Andy. I was watching and I kind of jumped off the couch and got excited watching him slide in the red zone, and everybody in the stadium kind of gave him a standing ovation. But it's interesting to see that Tua has that understanding of how he can manage his body and take care of himself. Miami had a really rough stretch there where they were the worst offense in the NFL. And Tua comes back, and the reps and the timing of that system and Coach McDaniel's system, you need it. And it's hard to come in and have not had the reps and just trust some of those throws. So I think Tua is going to put the Dolphins back in a position to score some more points, be a more competitive team. But I think last week Arizona showed that they're a legit contender, and Kyler Murray had a really good game in that one as well. So I don't want to discredit the Cardinals for beating the Dolphins, but it's nice to see Tua back out there. Hopefully they'll have some more continuity, and we'll have to see where their season goes.
Yeah, Kyler Murray got the last laugh for the Cardinals as they did kick that game-winning field goal against Tua, but it was good to see him back out there. As I know we were talking about it before, the questions about retirement, and he was very defiant going into that game that he had really not questioned retirement, not questioned his place in football. Did we see the game plan be limited in any way? Because you've talked about it. You just mentioned the fact that this Dolphins offense struggled. Their only team yet to score 100 points this season. Did we see anything in terms of the game plan for the Dolphins from Mike McDaniel that was limited in any way to ease Tua back into the game plan to the starting lineup?
I didn't feel that as an observer, and I think it went right back to their efficiency, right?
Yeah.
He just spit the ball out. He got it out of his hands. They utilize Alec Ingold and the tight ends well. You know, they have that concept where they run a seam and a wheel, and it was like the second play of the game they ran, which they had struggled to hit with Brett Hundley and Snoop Huntley, and then Skylar Thompson. So it's nice to see him come back in and then get back to kind of the things that he's super comfortable with. And we're just going to have to keep watching him progress, see how Coach McDaniel keeps being creative and utilizing what he has as talent around him. But it's been tough that the Dolphins, you know, let a couple of those games go early in the season. They're going to be fighting an uphill battle going the rest of the year. And I hope that Tua can put on a performance that keeps them in contention.
Yeah, so very good. At 2-5 right now, but that division not really the strongest. They do go up against the Buffalo Bills today, so they'll really have a measuring stick of what it takes to potentially win that division with Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Let's go around to another rookie quarterback because we're circling the wagons here a little bit, talking about rookies that have struggled, but now one that has excelled mightily. Jaden Daniels coming off that Hail Mary win over the Bears. What have we seen from him? Because he is notably using the VR technology to get inside the huddle and see what the field is before even stepping on the field. What do we make of what Jaden Daniels has done so far in his rookie campaign?
Listen to see the way that he's performed so far this year. I think Cliff Kingsbury is really playing into his strengths, giving him opportunities to run concepts that already make sense to him. He's running the ball really, really well. And one of the biggest things we saw early is that he wasn't protecting himself when he was outside the pocket. And he's doing a much better job at that. The next step I would love to see him make is handling more of the protection schemes. He's getting it. There's free blitzers at times, but because he's such a freak athlete, he's making them look silly and getting himself out of the pocket and making some plays. But I would love to see him have that next level of understanding to get the ball out of his hands to hots and sights and those open receivers, or checking the protection and making sure that he's picked up so he can still do the things that he's doing in the pass game. But he's been really, really impressive. He seemed really calm under pressure last week. They got into the red zone a few times and weren't able to convert. And I think that Jaden Daniels has put on a season as a rookie that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, the number 2 overall pick, emulating what C.J. Stroud did last year. 2 different players, but I like the way you mentioned that Jaden Daniels was taking what the defense gives him and then getting down as that runner that he is coming out of LSU. And I do want to ask you, talking about the VR, talking about the virtual reality that some of is going on in Washington. I don't know how much you've heard about that, but how beneficial can that be for a quarterback to see it through his eyes before actually taking the field? Is that a huge benefit for a QB?
I think the biggest thing is about getting reps as a quarterback, and you cannot simulate reps when you're standing 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You can see more things, right? Your perspective is widened. And when you watch it on tape, you see something completely different. You look at the sideline, you look at the end zone, but there's nothing like standing back there as the quarterback behind the center. And when you have the opportunity to put the VR goggles on and actually look at defenses and maybe start to identify, oh, that guy's standing a little bit further away, or, oh, that guy's, bumped over a gap and they're making room for a defender. You start to pick up on some of those things that you're able to do in a learning setting rather than a practice setting. And I think that it's super impactful. And especially for Jaden Daniels, who I think is, like I said, playing fantastic, and you'd love to see him take that next step. I think his ability to identify coverages and identify NFL coverages makes a significant difference. If we start seeing him play that chess match on top of his unbelievable physical ability, he's going to be one of the best players in the NFL for a long time.
That is so very good. And he is a very talented player. Rookie of the Year favorite, MVP conversation, all of the above. See if he can continue to lead the Commanders. But that was a signature moment, to say the least. All right, Reed, before I let you go, we want to get you some rapid-fire questions, just a little bit Halloween theme as we're the midway point, just coming out of Halloween, talking about quarterback. So rapid fire here. Which quarterback, in your eyes, has carved up defenses the best this year?
Think of Jared Goff and how they're using the timing and play action game. He's really, really tearing defenses up.
All right. Which quarterback is seeing ghosts?
Just seen some ghosts. On that pick 6 to Andrew Van Ginkel, not necessarily picking up a lot of pressures. I think Aaron Rodgers is seeing ghosts.
All right. Which D is giving quarterbacks nightmares this year?
First one that comes to mind is the Broncos, and they've got a tough task today for Lamar Jackson. So we'll see if their stout defensive front can shut it down.
All right. Which quarterback is dressed up as Superman this year?
I think it's Josh Allen. Josh Allen has played really, really well. He's curbed his turnover issues. He threw his first interception last week. Josh Allen looks like he's got an S on his chest.
All right. A couple more for you. Which quarterback is the sidekick? Which quarterback is the Robin to a Batman that exists on their offense?
It's a good question. I mean this with no disrespect, but Jalen Hurts right now, because A.J. Brown is an absolute monster. And when they need a play, they just say, hey, throw a go ball. Let's just give A.J. Brown a chance in one-on-one coverage. And Jalen's a friend of mine, no disrespect, but A.J. Brown is that good.
I thought you might say Sam Darnold there. All right, my last one before I let you go. Which QB is handing out apples and not candy?
Apples and not candy. I think it's our guy, Anthony Richardson.
Okay.
And I think that, the handing out apples is the way that you get to hit the pine a little bit. So I think that they've identified that, and I'm excited to watch Joe Flacco go out and spin it a little bit this week.
All right, more tricks than treats there in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson being benched. All right, Reed, thank you for playing along for that one. Great insight, plenty of quarterback news here in Week 9. We appreciate your time as always. All right, thank you so much. All right, let's continue on here on Football Sunday now. Just about 15 minutes until kickoff. Plenty to get to. A live look there right now at U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Indianapolis Colts travel to face the Vikings. We'll have much more here coming up in just a couple minutes. All right, welcome back in here to Football Sunday Now. I'm Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us. Just about 10 minutes until kickoff in this Week 9 slate of games. I do want to put up just this as one of the games taking place in Nashville, Tennessee. The Titans at 1-6 host the New England Patriots at 2-6. For more on this, let's go out right now to Jen Hale on the sidelines for this game. Let's listen in to our conversation earlier this week. In here to Football Sunday Now, I'm Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us. And they may call this one the Tank for Travis Hunter Bowl or Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward or whoever you have atop your NFL draft board, because these two teams are certainly going to have a high draft pick, 2 and 3 at this moment if the season ended today. And I'm talking about the New England Patriots and the Tennessee Titans, a combined 3 wins between the two teams. And this is taking place in Nashville, Tennessee. Let's be joined right now by NFL on Fox's Jen Hale. Jen, I know you're going to be on the sideline for this game. What are we looking forward to most with these two teams? I know New England coming off a big win where they really proved they're not soft anymore against the New York Jets. What are we looking for on the field?
Indeed. We're going to say this one's going to be a great one, Andy, because these two teams should be evenly matched. So it should be a good game, if nothing else, right? And I know it's such a fun storyline to talk about tanking, but I'm going to tell you, I've been doing this for 14 years, and coaches and players don't tank. Front offices might. Owners might want that. But coaches are coaching for their jobs. Players are playing to keep their jobs or for their next audition. So hopefully both teams are going to come out swinging, right? I think you saw that with the Patriots when May went down, Jacoby Brissett leading them to a pretty impressive come-from-behind victory. How much of that is that the Jets hadn't game plan for him and he was a surprise versus could there possibly be something here for the Patriots? I think we're going to start to see that question answered on Sunday. May working his way through that concussion protocol. They're not announcing exactly what he's on, but I would say here we are taping on Thursday. I would think he's about step 3. I would doubt we see him Sunday, but hey, you never know. And then Will Levis, Tennessee Titans, struggling to find their footing, a young team maturing, looking for their first home win. I think either team could win this one. So hopefully it'll be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. 2 evenly matched teams like you mentioned, and also new head coach for the New England Patriots, Gerard Mayo, a lot of pride coming off that win against the Jets. And Tennessee has something to prove after the Lions put up a 50-burger on them. So these two teams going to be motivated. Don't want to make light of that.
Not pretty.
Let's shift to the game you were at last week, covering the Arizona Cardinals, the NFC West leading Arizona Cardinals. What do we make of them? Because the connection is getting stronger between Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. After the game, you were talking to Kyler Murray, and he said Harrison just did his thing. It was as simple as that. What do you see from that connection on Sunday?
The Cardinals are a fun squad, Andy, because they're on the way up, right? They're not a team that's on the way down or struggling to hold on. I think they're going to improve each and every week. I love that coaching staff. I love what Jonathan Gannon is doing. As far as Marvin Harrison Jr., certainly there's the pedigree there, right? And I think a lot of people thought he was going to walk in and be the savior for this offense, but that's not the way this offense is constructed. It's a run-first offense that centers around James Conner and then tight end Trey McBride. So I certainly was not pushing the panic button over that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray connection. He's the second, third option. And as that connection grows, maybe Harrison Jr. can take away that 1-2 status from Conner and McBride, but that's not the way this was designed. And I think that's a good thing. Let Harrison Jr. mature, let him earn his stripes, let him get his feet wet in the NFL. He is an incredibly mature young man. That connection that we started to see bud Sunday versus the Miami Dolphins, that's just going to continue to grow and get stronger. It's time on task. It's Harrison Jr. adjusting to the NFL, Kyler and him learning each other, and that's going to grow the more time they get together on the field.
Yeah, that is so very true. He's a special talent going up against Jalen Ramsey last week with the Miami Dolphins, a tough secondary with the Bears this week. I do want to ask you about being around Marvin Harrison Jr. I know you saw him with the juggling before earlier in the regular season.
Yeah.
He's already got 5 touchdowns so far receiving as a rookie. That's ranks 4th best among all players in the NFL. And his dad, notably, the star for the Indianapolis Colts, he only had 8. So he's catching up to his dad in terms of those rookie stats. How much of a pro's pro is Marvin Harrison Jr. already just as a rookie?
One of the best I've ever seen. You can definitely see the influence of his dad playing out. And then, hey, he told me also Peyton Manning's been a mentor for him through the years. And what better mentor than that, right? And juggling you just mentioned, that's a perfect example. So he added that to his routine himself this offseason to help with hand-eye coordination. He catches an extra 250 balls off the jug machine at practice. Then he goes home and he has a tennis ball machine that throws him tennis balls. And his line of reasoning, especially with the one-handed catches, is if he can catch a smaller tennis ball one-handed, how much easier will it be come Sunday to catch the larger football, and then the juggling, the hand-eye coordination. This is a guy that understands what it takes to get the job done. He is a true professional. You're going to see a lot of high-flying antics and high-flying tricks and fantastic plays from him for many years to come.
It's going to be so special to see him grow as a player, like you mentioned there, trying to live up to the hype that his dad was a Hall of Famer hit for himself. So trying to set the path for him. Let's talk about the other side, because Chicago coming off that heartbreaking loss to Washington, everyone talking about the Jaden Daniels Hail Mary, but it was almost Caleb Williams that led the Chicago Bears to a game-winning touchdown. They scored with 25 seconds on the clock as well. What are we seeing from him offensively, and maybe how different of a player is he as a rookie quarterback the first few weeks to now coming into this Week 9 matchup?
Yeah, you've really seen him make a jump starting in October and growing every week. I think September was pretty stagnant for him, but he's definitely getting his legs underneath him, getting his confidence. The Bears as a whole have certainly had to retool a lot, certainly a lot of room to grow for them. But Caleb Williams, he's on the right path. He's on the right trajectory. How does he hold up versus this Cardinals defense? This should be a good opportunity for him, because right now the Cardinals are a squad that plays hard. That defense leaves it all on the field. They do this thing called effort roulette, where they gut check each other every Monday. But look, they're not the fastest, they're not the strongest defense in the world. Caleb Williams should be able to have success against them if he keeps his wits about him, remembers to go through his progressions, remembers his basics and his fundamentals this Sunday.
No, that is so very true. It's going to be a fun one. Caleb Williams could have been the signature win for him there on Sunday in Washington. Alas, it was not the case, but he still has a very bright future ahead of him. I do want to ask you, because we talk about the Bears and their schedule right now. They're in the toughest division in football, and they haven't played really any division games. The Bears have the toughest schedule remaining. That is going to be a tall task for Caleb Williams and company. When we look at that, how do the Bears manage those expectations down the stretch, knowing that they had to face the Packers twice, they had to face the Lions twice as well? Maybe not for the next couple weeks, but down the stretch, it's going to be tough for the Bears.
It is, but look, iron sharpens iron. This is how you learn. This is how you grow. I think it's safe to say they're not going to the Super Bowl this year. So use this as a learning experience. Use it to learn to play your best football come late November, December, and early January, because that's how you get to where you want to go in the postseason. So this is an invaluable growing piece, building block for them if they capitalize on it and treat it right.
All right, as we talked about the NFL quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, it takes a long time, the long play to gain that experience. Let's shift gears to a quarterback that knows a thing or two about winning Super Bowls, that being Patrick Mahomes. Monday Night Football, they host the Tampa Bay and the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield coming to town. All right, Jen, what do we make of this matchup? They're 7-0. Their schedule doesn't look very difficult the rest of the way. Does this train keep on rolling on Monday night?
I think so, Andy. And the scary thing is the Chiefs aren't even playing good football right now. They're playing ugly. They're winning ugly. That offense not getting going at all so far. So everything you think you know about the Kansas City Chiefs, basically flip it. The strength of that team this season has been its defense, and its offense has really struggled. Patrick Mahomes not looking like himself. Travis Kelce, where is he? But hey, to me, that means this bodes well for the Chiefs, because you got to figure that offense is going to start clicking, right? It's only a matter of time. So they're going to be playing their best football when it matters most. And oh yeah, they just got this new weapon in DeAndre Hopkins. And yeah, I get it. He's no longer a take the top off the defense wide receiver, but he's still a guy who can really help you. And he's a guy that's going to keep defenses honest. One of the reasons I think Kelsey hasn't gotten going this season is because everybody's zeroing in on him. He's being double teamed all the time. Everybody's game planning to take him away. Now you got Hopkins, and he can punish you if you leave him unattended. Obviously, he just arrived, so we haven't seen a ton of production out of him. I think what's going to be imperative this week and the weeks to come, especially on those quote-unquote easy games, is to really hone in on targeting him, getting him integrated into the offense, so it's a fine-tuned machine come the end of December, beginning of January for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and it didn't get off to the best start in that first day, but he came back midweek in that trade from Tennessee over to Kansas City, so we'll see if they get integrated against a Tampa Bay defense that has quite a few holes in it. They've given up quite a bit of points. I do want to talk about Travis Kelce because you mentioned that the big game he had most recently against Las Vegas. We know Taylor Swift was in New Orleans most recently, where the site of the Super Bowl blowing off the top on the Superdome. She's in Indy, so she's kind of tracking around through NFL stadiums as we get closer to the end of the year. What do we make of Travis Kelce's move, and how much does Travis Kelce look like Travis Kelce again?
Right now, he doesn't very much. But again, I think that's because he's the prime target for every defense. Every defensive coordinator, every defensive back, every defensive line, that's who they're circling. That's who they're going after. So Hopkins is going to help with that. He can at least punish them if they do that. And look, I think Kelsey's going to adjust. He's not only an incredibly talented player, he's an incredibly smart player. Steve Spagnuolo over there with the Chiefs, him and Andy Reid, they're going to be able to get together and diagnose what defenses are doing to Travis and figure out ways to scheme him open. I'm quite confident. I'm not worried about this offense long term. But I'm glad you brought up the Bucs because, again, talk about flipping things you know about teams. Who would have thunk that a Todd Bowles defense has been so porous right now? The strength for them has been their offense. And, man, they're now down Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. So it's the run game, I think, for the Bucs come Monday night. If they win, it's because they get that ground game going and they use their tight end, Kate Otten.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. The NFC South, very streaky right now. A lot of teams starting off good, turning bad, starting off bad, turning good. So it's interesting to see what shakes out in there. And, of course, you have to go through Kansas City if you want to be the top team in the NFL. Jen Hale, thank you so much again. I appreciate your time here on Live Now on Football Sunday Now.
Thanks for having me, Andy. Always enjoy.
All right, great conversation there with Jen Hale ahead of all of these games. The kickoff now underway in so many cities. We're at the midway point of the NFL season. Plenty to get to here on Football Sunday Now. I'm the host. Thank you for joining us, Andy Mack, as we're covering the full slate of games every 90 minutes leading up to kickoff to get you prepared for all the top headlines, top storylines, top injury news that we're covering here for the latest. Live look right now at this in Green Bay, Wisconsin, the site of America's Game of the Week, the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. I'm Andy Mack. We'll be back after this.